Yeah, I was. I mean, considering I didn't really know what I was doing, didn't know what I was doing, but obviously with the language barrier, and obviously him being that much of a veteran and wanting to do his type of match, I think I did okay. But I'd love to have the chance to do it again, obviously under much different conditions now, sort of thing, with me being that much better, and obviously working in before. But whether that happens is just pure speculation. But yeah, I think for my level at the time, I did the best I could. So, I
mean, you were sort of getting to have a big marquee main event match every couple of months by that time.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was. It was. Yeah, it was cool.
I mean, you had another one. 2 months later, March 2007, you find yourself leading IPW UK in its winner-take-all battle against the FWA. Now, presumably, you had mixed feelings about being the person who was going to kill the FWA.
I did, yeah, because obviously for me it was one of those things. Me and Sticks hadn't been beaten for the tag belts. They stripped the belts off of us. Obviously, due to I'm guessing the show started to run down and stuff like that. And obviously, I was most of the time I was booked like for the year in advance with IPW anyway, so I know a lot of the bookings clashed. Yeah, for me, I didn't really want to be in that position of, because my only fear was being the one person that, you killed the FWA, you sank British wrestling or whatever. So that was one thing I didn't want. But when I was, obviously the first time it was supposed to be me and Alex, yeah. But obviously it wasn't to happen, and it wasn't to be. I was pretty gutted, but I do believe in fate, and I do believe everything happens for a reason. And obviously, fast forward a couple of years, and there's a good reason why. But being able to get in the ring with Flash is one of the highlights of my career. From one of my first shows I did for LDN, I got compared to Flash, which for me was a massive one. I've still got the program indoors when someone did a review of the match I had with Ash, and he said very, very similar to Flash Barker and reminded me of Flash Barker of his old school FWA days. So to be put in that match was another shocking another really big moment for me, and a big pressure test for me.
Did it feel like a big deal the very moment when you actually pinned Flash and killed the FWA?
Oh mate, it was. Talking about it now, I've got goosebumps thinking about it. That night was tremendous, and I've come close to having a few moments like that, but when Flash gave me his seal of approval at the end of it, that really smashed it off. And the thing is, though, the guy had been retired like 3-4 years, and we had an absolute belter, and that match still, I refuse to say that match will not stand up against most matches nowadays. So
now, Flash, as I said earlier, was my guest on the show last week. He's coming back to FWA. He's gone through quite a time in recent months. You know, he's lost his second wife. He's lost his job and all kinds of other things going on in his life. So he's very much seeing this as almost a last chance. He wants to eventually get back in the ring and see what he can do. Do you think? Do you like his chances? Do you think he's got a shot at this?
From the fact that he'd been out of the ring 4 years. I think it was 4 years. I think it might have been 3. I'm not too sure. And the fact that he just got in there and we just did it, he's got no problems of stepping back in the ring. If Flash comes back, then for me that's great, because that's a whole new series of matches if it can happen. If he does come, well, wow. That's pretty much all I can say. That's great.
We could talk about the various main events you've been in all day, but we're going to run out of time. So let me just talk about one more.
Okay.
And it's one you just mentioned briefly. But let's fast forward to autumn of 2008, and finally you do find yourself in the ring against Alex Shane.
Yeah.
Tell us how that came about, first of all.
I think it was obviously I can't remember what it was over. At the time, they weren't too sure how they were going to have Yeston beat me, if I remember correctly, with IPW. They were like, we don't know whether to do a screwy finish or a straight finish or whatever. And obviously I just said, well, you come up with the finish and I'll do whatever. It was Yeston's time to be champion. And then I got a call from Andy saying, right, you're going to get a phone call from...
Andy Quilden.
Yeah. You're gonna get a call from the guy who's going to be called costing you the match. And I was like, right, okay, I didn't think thought, well, whatever. And then obviously the show stealer's name popped up on my phone, and I was like, what? And then when he went through what he wanted to do and how he wanted to do it, I just turned into a complete mark. Again, there's the guy who put British wrestling back on the map and put British wrestling in front of my eyes again, and actually made me want to be a part of what wrestling is over here. So we sat down and chatted about the match, and when it started to unfold and we started to go through it, I was thinking to myself, this is a pretty damn good match. And then so for me, standing there waiting for his music to hit was another really, really, really big moment for me. That I can't describe how that felt. That was great. And for me, it really was a true test of me being in the main event, because he doesn't work a mid-card style. He doesn't work like an opening match. He works like a main eventer, and there's a big difference between working a main event style match and an opening match. So yeah, it was awesome.
One of the interesting things about that match, other than the match itself, was the build-up, and there were a couple of videos exchanged. Where you were kind of laying into each other and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
One of the most interesting things about your one, I thought, was when you did admit that British wrestling is in the toilet. I think I can't remember what your exact words were. Yeah. Presumably that is your real view. And what do you think is wrong with British wrestling?
British wrestling has no mainstream TV, which, to plug a product, you need mainstream advertising. So the reason why TNA is where it is because it has mainstream television. Obviously, Vince McMahon is where he is because he has mainstream television. You have stars that are genuine 100% stars. All you got to do is say The Rock, and the crossover from films already makes wrestling in the American public's eyes that much bigger. Wrestling in England and in Britain and to be fair, in Europe in general is all down. So for me now, I think the FWA is really the last chance for it to really pick up again. I think it can. I do think it can, because I go to various shows and attendance is up, even though we're in the time of the recession, which is kind of rare. For instance, I was in Germany last week, and the halls were it was at least 500, which is quite a lot for an indie show. So it is it's in the toilet for a whole magnitude of reasons. Obviously, certain places don't promote enough. Certain places don't really care about what they put on, so they just put on crap. And then people won't come along to the next show because what they've seen was just not worth the 10, 15 quid, whatever they spent. But it needs something mainstream. It needs a big push mainstream. So